Welcome back to episode 120 of the Disorganized Wizard Club podcast. My name is Alex. I'm here with Adam.
Hello.
And just Adam this week. We're a pair of Ottawa-based players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. Talk about decks, tournament stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
Most definitely. A pair of.
Yeah.
Rip group.
Yeah, Cam out for the...
Cam's dead.
Yeah.
Rip. He is destroyed sick. Yeah. He's very sick. He's quite miserable. I think he actually has to go teach tonight, too. He's TAing tonight.
Oh, yeah, right. Because we were originally going to record after he was done TAing.
But he still has to do that because he can't get anyone to cover for him. He sounded pretty miserable when I talked to him about it. I told him to message me if he needed any medicine or anything. I'd stop at the store and grab it on the way back. But, yeah.
But we're still going to do this. We got a lot to talk about this week. A lot of things happened.
Yeah,
so
big week.
Not only did we have the first Mythic Championship this past week, but also... shortly after we recorded our last week's episode, they finally made an OP announcement.
Yeah, organized play has been sort of cagey for quite some time. We were getting the stay tuned for more meme,
Yeah.
constantly about any information. It was so funny. We talked about, we picked almost the worst possible time to record because we went on maybe a 20-minute sort of theoretical sort of discussion about what organized play OP could possibly do. And then and then they released a sort of massive statement about sort of moving forward, how people qualify and how they're going to go about qualifying. So,
Yeah. So we'll kind of go through this article a little bit, give our thoughts, but to kick it off, how to qualify for the World Championship. Down to 16 players.
Yeah.
Originally it was
24.
The winners of all the Mythic Championships, all 4 tabletop, and the 3 MTG Arena ones all qualify. You have the returning champion, which is...
Javier Dominguez. Yeah.
Yes, but they didn't do that the past couple of years.
Yeah.
They got rid of that.
Yeah, because that BVD got screwed. Yeah.
Yeah. But so it's actually really nice to see that come back because it's kind of absurd that the reigning champion wouldn't be invited back.
That BBD didn't get reinvited is just incredibly absurd. Just one of the worst decisions that organized play had made in a few years. Well, just a bad decision. Worst. I mean,
Yeah, and then to round out these 16 players, you have the top 4 from the Magic Pro League, which makes sense. And then you have top 4 challenger players, which are the Mythic point leaders. Now, if you're wondering what Mythic points are, they're basically the replacement for Pro points.
Right.
Get your Mythic points by playing in Mythic Championships. Any tabletop or MTG Arena. You don't get them from Grand Prix, which is
that is interesting. That's an interesting change.
And you can also get them from the Mythic Championship qualifying weekends on Arena.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which I'll dive into a little bit later when we talk about how to qualify for the Arena Championship. But they've down to 16 players away from, before they would do the pro point leaders by region, right, would qualify. So they've cut the amount of spots, $1 million prize pool. That's up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's up.
Or is it the same as the last one? It might be the same as the last one, but there's more prize distributed due to there being 16 players, I believe.
Yeah, so, not much to say on that. The best of the best are getting in. Makes sense.
That's a pretty standard for World Championship organization, but the big change is nice to see the World Champion having a return spot. So
big fan of that decision. So they posted, the Mythic points distributions for, the Arena Mythic Championships and for the tabletop ones. They look pretty much the exact same to me. 50 points for first, 42 for second, etc.
Yeah. It's pretty similar to the Pro Point system.
Yeah, and then you can also get 5 points for day 2 of a Mythic Qualifier weekend. So, Mythic Qualifier weekends. If you want to qualify for the MTG Arena Mythic Championships, all the MPL players will be there, obviously. Yeah. But they've introduced a way for players on ladder to get in.
Yeah.
So, the top 1,000 Mythic players for the season get invited to play in the Mythic Qualifier weekend. So day 1, it's 2-day event. Day 1, you play, they kind of runs like a constructed event. You play to either you get the maximum amount of wins or the maximum amount of losses.
Yeah.
And then if you get the max amount of wins, you get to qualify for day 2. If you lose, you're done.
Yeah.
And then day 2, it goes to a Swiss pairing tournament like it would normally. And then top 16 qualifies for the Mythic Championship.
Yeah. It's a pretty good system, I think, actually.
Yeah, I actually like it a lot. Top 1,000 in Mythic doesn't seem like an unattainable goal if you put any kind of effort into it at all.
No, I mean, my friend Manny was rank 1 for a while before Hayne jacked him up for it. But he was rank 1 for a while, and he was just streaming and playing, just a grinder, just out there playing.
And then, for being top 1,000, you get to play essentially a Grand Prix from the comfort of your home.
Which is, incredible.
Mm-hmm. And, top 16,
it's doable.
Yeah.
Doable for sure. I think, that's a big thing for me. Being able to play from the comfort of your home is really sweet. I don't know if you remember, or any listeners have had the pleasure of playing in a hometown Grand Prix. Let me tell you, it's the best. Being able to go home after a Grand Prix and sleep in your own bed and then wake up for the next day to play again that's something else. But maybe I'm just old, Yeah. Used to sleeping on hotel room floors or whatever ain't the same anymore. This old man,
Yeah. And so the MTG Arena Mythic Championships are a lot smaller than the tabletop ones, with only 52 players playing. So a lot smaller tournament size, more kind of feels a lot more like an esports tournament, which I guess it is.
I actually like this a lot. Mm-hmm. So because the tabletop, right, in contrast here, has up to 500 players possibly playing in it, right? Because it's the Magic Pro League, Pro Players Club, which is the Mythic points.
Yeah.
And then prior performances, you went, 33 points, 11 wins at a Mythic Championship, and you qualify for the tabletop Mythic Champion. So, the MTG Arena ones they feel like so much. I think it's actually more interesting because 52 people is not that many, so the metagame will be sort of deeply affected by this, and it'll change how people approach it. And
it's actually really interesting too, because for the tabletop championships, there's 4 of them, $500,000 prize pool, but the 3 arena ones are all $750,000 prize pools and much less players.
Yeah, it's more.
So very, very lucrative if you manage to, spike a weekend and qualify for one of these things.
Yeah. So if you're not playing arena yet, you should be.
Yeah, and you can also, if you have a really good Mythic Championship for the arena one, you can qualify for the next one.
Yeah,
as well, which is the same for tabletop.
Which is really cool. And then also the Magic Fest, Grand Prix, Mythic Championship qualifiers. Those will also get you to the tabletop ones.
Yeah, exactly. So Grand Prix top 8 still get you to the tabletop championships. The PTQs they run on Grand Prix weekends still will qualify for you, but they're bringing back basically the old PTQ system.
Yeah, there's one winner, baby.
Yeah, where stores can run, which
they're gonna be huge events, like back they used to be. So I loved those because we used to wake up and drive to these PTQs that have like
multiple hundreds of players in Toronto.
Hundreds of players, and I felt like a real tournament, whereas a PPTQ is like, okay, I went and won a 17-person tournament, and then now I got to go win a 50-person tournament. Mm-hmm. And I played in a total of 2 RPTQs. I went 50-50. But I don't think that's impressive. Like, I don't know. When I when I qualified for the Pro Tour through the RPTQ, it was sort of like, I don't know, like I had an okay sealed deck. I won 5 rounds, and then I won my quarters match, and it was like I played 6 rounds of Magic, and I was on the Pro Tour, and it was sort of like, I don't know. There wasn't much excitement behind it. I think that there's something, if you spike like a 200, if you're the one winner at a 200-person tournament, that feels nuts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's, I don't know. And I think I would have been, you would be more excited for the PT that way. Having said that though, did it feel bad losing in the finals or the semis of an old school PTQ, which I had done multiple times, and man, that stings. That stings.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the Grand Prix PTQs are like the best ones to play in because there are only really ever 5 rounds, and then you're not slugging out like an 8-round PTQ, like
you played in one at Toronto, right?
Yeah, and it was only 5 rounds. I went 4-1, missed top 8, but
still, I mean, you've got a 5-0, and then that's pretty sweet too. Yeah, no, I kind of like how things are moving. So as far as organized play, like I'm pretty happy with the direction it's moving, which. That's maybe the first time I've said that. I'm usually pretty critical about the decisions they make, but this one I'm okay with. Yeah. It's not much different than the old system, but the minor tweaks I'm happy with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, the biggest thing here is the removal of the Pro Players Club, right? So you can't really, outside of being an MPL player, it's really hard to string together multiple Mythic Championships.
Yeah. At which point, if you do, they'll probably just make you an MPL player if you're just nuts. Like if you just keep, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like it.
I do think that's weird. Like what happens to the MPL when like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, yeah, we don't really know how the MPL is going to play out. You know, which players, how many players from the MPL get invited back depending on their performance. We don't know if it's a top 4 thing.
Right. Like I have so many questions about that, but you know.
And I have a feeling it's going to, if you're in the MPL, it's going to be a lot easier to stay in it because you're already qualified for all 7 Mythic Championships. Whereas if you're not in the Pro Players Club currently, you have to like spike a PTQ or top 8 Grand Prix to get in, and then like just have insane finishes at every single one.
Right, like that is one. Okay, so now that I've said nice things, it's time for me to say mean things.
Okay.
So now for me to be critical, I do think that's a problem. I think it rewards unfairly entrenched players to a point that's just ludicrously difficult for anyone to compete with. Moreover, though, my biggest criticism, and I was having dinner with Pete the other night, and we were talking about this. One of the issues is, dude, you phrase it so funny. Like, we love Reed Duke, right?
Oh, yeah.
Obviously.
Man of the people. Love that guy.
Yeah, but if you ever watch him stream, it's like, he's...
It's not the most exciting guy to watch.
Kind of like watching paint dry, but it's great if I'm ever, I don't want to be mean. So if I'm ever suffering from insomnia and I need to fall asleep, I watch a Reed Duke draft or like a standard event and I'm out like a light on the Channel Fireball videos because the way Pete phrased it just killed me, man. It was so funny. He goes, yeah, you know, you watch him do a cube draft and he's like, oh, there's a Hunt Master here. You know, I really like a Hunt Master. He's just mousing over like Dark Ritual. You know what I mean? Martin is going over like Vampiric Tutor. And then he's like, I'm going to take the Hunt Master. It's like, yeah, dude, we know you love Hunt Master. Like, we know you love Rock decks. Yeah, we're well aware. You know? So one of the things, because one of the requirements, okay, this is super weird, is I just don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know if this is criticism per se, but one of the requirements for the MPL is you have to stream.
Well, not necessarily.
Or you're encouraged.
There is a streamer contract which you can get more money from.
Right.
And I think the only player who didn't do it was Jerry Thompson.
Yeah.
So you don't have to, but you get more money if you do. So why wouldn't you?
Right. It's just kind of crazy not to.
But yeah, a big thing is not just because you're really good at Magic doesn't mean you're a very good streamer.
Exactly. And that's sort of what I'm getting at is that the best streamers, and I'm talking not just in Magic, I'm talking about if you want to be a successful streamer, it's literally just consistency. You have to stream 6 hours a day, 6 days a week. You know what I mean? It's a full-time job. And I guess, you know, if you're getting paid, they sort of do it. But how many people are going to watch someone who is, you know what I mean? Like you're competing with like Caleb, who people love and has a huge following. You know, Seth, when he streams, people...
Yeah. And like, let's not undersell how difficult it is to entertain for 6 hours a day, every single day of the week.
For sure.
To be an interesting character and just have, you know, people enjoy watching you. It's not easy.
Right. It's not for everyone.
And they don't just show up because you're good at Magic. Like, it's why, like, you see every time LSV streams, he always has like multiple thousand people watching because that dude's entertaining to watch. He's insanely good at Magic and he's actually like, he's funny, he makes jokes. Like he's an interesting player to watch and you enjoy his stream.
Or like Cheon eating an entire pizza on stream in one sitting. That's great, you know?
Yeah.
Or like if I just want to get my fill of Michael Jacobs, you know, Darkest Mage getting tilted for 20 minutes, then I'm good. I just watch him for half an hour. I'm like, oh, look at him go. He's so mad.
Yeah, but like there's something to be said about the character these people, like not the characters they portray, but just the people they are and like, not everyone is interesting.
Exactly. I'm not in that way. Like they're not good at selling themselves as an entertainment piece. And that's not a criticism of their, you know, personality or individual. Maybe that's a virtue actually. That, you know, you're not a good circus seal for 6 hours. Maybe that's a good thing. But it's just a stating a fact of, you know, it's kind of an awkward thing to sort of have a streamer contract and then 31 of the 32 people took it. And it's sort of, what does that do for sort of the market share of like natural streamers who want to stream just because they're popular? There's this sort of forced element to it.
Honestly, I actually think it's just good for everybody because you're just bringing more people to the Twitch page.
Yeah, and
Because knowing that the best players in the world are going to be streaming, you're just going to be there already. And then you'll see other streamers regardless and maybe check out other streams and then find the ones you like.
Overall, it's probably just good for the game. So I'm pro that. Like, I'm pretty entrenched, right? And so I'm pro anything good for the game.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. This OP announcement's cool. I like it. I'm definitely going to try and qualify for this arena qualifying weekend.
I'm playing in it.
It's going to be sweet.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, moving on. Mythic Championship Cleveland, won by Autumn Burchett, Mono Blue, our boys.
Yeah.
The boys in blue taking it down.
Yeah, Autumn had if you watch the finals, Autumn played extremely well, I think, in the last game. In game 3, they played incredibly well, I thought. The patience and normally I'm not a big sort of, oh, wow, what a sick play, you know. I'm not usually that impressed. Maybe I'm just an old cynic.
Yeah.
But I thought the game 3, the way, actually both players, not just Autumn, Ikikawa also played.
Yeah, I think he made the one like really critical mistake in game 5 where he missequenced his Thief of Sanity and
that one's close. I don't know
the
that's a
Reborn
mistake for sure. It's so close. It just depends on what you think he has. Or sorry, not what he has, what Autumn has, right? It just depends. It's close. I agree that I would have done it the other way, but man, it's close. But the game 5, sorry, that's the one I'm thinking of, not game 3. I just saying game 3 out of habit.
Yeah.
The game 5 Autumn played, they played so well. They played that incredibly well. So yeah, it was a really good finals, I thought. So it was a really good top 8 actually. It was I thought it was a great weekend. I thought the standard meta game looked great. I think it was a good look for the game.
Yeah. I mean, we had Sultai midrange being the most played deck.
20% of the field, which I actually said it would be under 20% in my predictions. I said I didn't think any deck would take up more than 20% of the metagame because the standard was so diverse. I was wrong, but by a couple percent.
Yeah.
It was 21%.
Kind of what do you think the reason is for that, though?
The Sultai deck's just so safe, right? And like you said, last week, people were adopting Crawl Harpooner and ways to beat Mono Blue. So but I don't think they adopted enough ways to beat Mono Blue, and I think they overestimated their security in the matchup. Right? I think we can agree on this.
Yeah,
they sort of said, "Okay, I got a couple new sideboard cards, easy." You know what I mean? Like I'll be fine, and then none of them top 8'd. Although as a deck, it performed fine.
Yeah, I mean there was one copy of the deck in the highest point earners.
Yeah, it was a 10 point or a 10 win, like a undefeated Sultai deck. So
and like. Looking at the top 4 decks played, you have Sultai midrange, Nexus of Fate, which
we also sort of predicted a good combo deck would draw a lot of people to it.
I guess does Nexus of Fate just encompass any deck with Nexus of Fate?
Yeah, they did it with sort of you could be the banned version, Gates version, or this. But yeah, I mean it's 14% of the field. It's still a large amount.
Then I mean white aggro and mono blue aggro. So I mean, looking at those top 4 decks. Your Nexus of Fate matchup as Sultai is winnable. You have Duress in your sideboard. Like, you can win those games.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're prepared for Mono Blue, you can definitely beat it. It's not the best matchup in the world, but you can beat it.
I think white aggro is good for you.
White aggro, yeah. I don't think that deck's an issue at all for you.
No. So it's not a bad choice. Like we said last week, I believe, it's never going to be a bad choice.
Yeah.
And then the 5th most played deck, Esper, which, of course, was copy in the top 8 and was the one in the finals as well, which I had thought was not going to be really heavily played, but would definitely show up in a significant percentage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the 2 undefeated decks in day 1 were Esper Control and Simic Nexus.
Yep.
So that Esper Control didn't make top 8. Yeah, I think he 0-3'd his second draft. But
bit of a beating.
Yeah, so pretty, like, when you really get down to it, the field was relatively diverse.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great standard tournament. Although I think that, I'm pretty happy with how things played out. I also think that we were pretty correct because remember when the Jody Keith with the Star City Games Rakdos midrange deck, we I think instantly, we hadn't even talked about it before the episode started, and live on episode, all 3 of us just said, there's just no way this deck does well at the Mythic Championship. This deck is just too clunky. It's junky. Like it had a very good weekend that one weekend. Yeah, well, and it was because we said, the deck. So the deck does have more game than you think, but that's not a lot more. You know what I mean? It doesn't have, when its base level is essentially no game, it having a little bit more than none is not great. Because that deck just isn't beating Hydrate Crisis, and it's just not beating Esper Control. It's just a junky mid-range control deck that can't beat a real dedicated control deck or a Hydrate Crisis. And that deck just got smashed on. It had one of the worst conversion rates.
Yeah.
The Rakdos mid-range deck.
Yeah, what was its conversion rate?
50%.
50%, yeah.
I think the only one worse was...
so we have...
Is it Drake's was actually worse, but Is it Phoenix was the best conversion rate. So Is it Drake's had a 43% day 2 conversion rate, but Is it Phoenix had a 100% conversion rate to day 2.
And I mean, the only other decks with 100% conversion rates were the ones with only one deck in the field.
Yeah.
So,
and whoever the two people playing Dimir midrange are, that's nuts. I don't know what the Dimir midrange is. I'm assuming. I'm assuming it's fake news.
I think Seth Manfield played it.
Fake news.
I'm pretty sure he played Dimir. If I can find the deck list, we'll talk about it. But I'm almost positive that's what he played.
Yeah, I would imagine it was Doom Whispers and...
Doom Whispers a card, I think it's actually criminally underplayed right now.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think it lines up against a lot of the field pretty well, actually. Because if it resolves against Mono Blue game 1, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
Gonna be in big trouble, but... Yeah, so pretty diverse weekend, pretty interesting sort of metagame. Alex, the one standout was, here it is. It's just whoa.
Lazov, Nightvale Predator, Thief of Sanity. This
is,
I'm pretty sure this is Rizier. Rizier from Magic Online. Yeah.
This deck is wild.
Nightvale Predator, main deck.
One of?
Yeah. Yeah,
what is this?
I saw this list on Twitter. I'm almost positive that's him.
This deck is nuts. This is some.
Yeah, man. Freebooter, Hostage Taker, Chupacabra, one Mesmerizing Benthed, Thief of Sanity, one Nightvale Predator. I don't know.
Why not? One Dive Down.
Yeah, why the hell not?
One Discovery Dispersible. One Spell Pierce. One Deadweight.
Clean.
This is just a teched out cards I own. Majlaton and a few other people also of note did well with mono red Splashing Cindervines and Collision Colossus for the mono blue matchup, and of course Cindervines for Control and Nexus.
Oh yeah, here's Manfield's deck, Dimir. The other.
Okay, he's playing just a normal, what I expected, which is Doom Whisperer, Hostage Taker, Thief of Sanity.
Yeah, he's playing Disinformation Campaign.
He's just playing fake news with Cry the Carnarium, one copy main, but I think that's pretty good. Fungal Infection is pretty rad, actually.
I'm very good versus mono blue. Very
and
good
red,
versus mono white.
and white.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Real batting in other matchups, but hey, like,
yeah, I mean,
tag an Explore creature even against Sultai. It's not bad.
I think this deck's biggest problem would be probably just Sultai. Like you have cards that are good in the matchup.
Well, I don't know.
I think,
4 Hostage Taker, 4 Thief is huge.
Yeah,
that's really hateful.
Looking at this deck, though, I think like they're just going to go over the top of you.
I think the problem is actually just one Vraska's Contempt. If they stick a Walker, you can be in big trouble.
Like Vivian's going to smash you, and like Hydroid Crisis, like I said, you're just going to go over the top, and they're not going to be able to catch up.
So yeah, I think that, but I also think that this deck it could have an okay Sultai matchup. I'd have to play it. I'm actually going to go home and build this and try this only because there is. It's playing 4 Thought Erasure, 3 Duress. So I wonder to what extent them just being able to go like take a removal spell on 1, Thought Erasure your Chupacabra on 2, Thief of Sanity go, and the game just ends.
Yeah.
Right? Like versus Sultai midrange, like can't you see this being the case? Like I can right? And also against mono blue, does this not just have a really good matchup? Like 4 cast down, Duress to tag all their like dive downs. Like, is this deck actually just nuts? Versus the meta he expected, like you know what I mean? Like I agree at first, and then the more I think about it, I'm like, wait, does this thing just line up super well?
Yeah, probably.
Right? Like I don't know. Like I have to try this out, but I could see a world in which this is actually a really good metagame call. What do you go 7 and 3?
I think so, yeah.
That's pretty good. Right? Like at the Pro Tour, like if you
Yeah.
went 7-3, you'd be like, hell yeah, my deck was great.
Yeah, you 6-0 limited and you make the top 8.
You 5-1 with good breakers, you make top 8. Like it's...
Yeah, 7-3.
Yeah, I mean, that's... I don't know, like... It's super interesting. It's a card... Yeah, it's a deck that's just trying to get your hand and then punish you further with Thief of Sanities, right? It's literally a Thief of Sanity deck.
Yeah.
So,
and I think, like you mentioned, 7 discard spells in your main deck, you're probably going to line up pretty well versus Simic Nexus too.
Yeah, and then you just put them into top deck mode with, all that discard and disinformation campaign, and then you just slam, a Doom Whisper and go to town.
Yeah.
Like, I could see that deck. But the thing is, it could also have some really ugly draws where your hand is, let's imagine your hand is, Duress, 3 lands, 2 cast downs, and a Chupacabra, and you get paired versus Esper Control. Yeah, sure. You have a Duress. They have the sample hand thing, right? On here?
Yeah. I lost the deck.
Oh, it's up further, I think. But I'm so curious, right? Because this is a deck that it can have these sort of really ugly hands, right? Yeah, there's sample hand. Let's see here. I love sample hand. Yeah, here we go.
Thought Erasure, Island, Discovery Dispersal, Thief of Sanity, Duress, Karn, Drowned Catacomb. Snapkeep.
Yeah, this hand is actually nuts. All right, I'm listening. This is a hand that you actually just beat most decks with, right?
Yeah.
But you actually might lose to aggro here, right? This is a hand that probably loses to aggro.
Yeah.
But
you're never...
I mean, mono white. Mono white or red, you probably lose.
Mm.
But everything else, you win. So this is the thing. This deck is so well designed to beat the metagame, but it has to draw exactly what it needs.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the more you talk about this deck, the more I'm starting to like it.
Right, that's what I mean. I'm gonna go home and play it, and I'll report back next week. And for those of you on our Discord, I'll report this weekend early. You'll get my feedback on this deck early and any changes I've made. But this is a deck I'm curious about, and one of the ones sort of flying under the radar from the PT that I think is worth exploring, and a deck that I think has some potential in the meta. And so it's something that, I'm going to explore, and I'll sort of try and give some feedback on. So I think it's pretty cool. The other one I was thinking of was actually Joe So's crazy Mardu Vampires deck.
Yeah, let me pull that one.
That one is hilarious. He went 7-3 as well in Standard. And he's straight up just playing Mardu Vampires with Judith. It's basically black-white vampires with Judith. The only red card in the main, actually, is Judith. And it's Duskborn Skymarcher, Skymarch Aspirant, Vicious Conquistador, Dusk Legion Zealot, Legion's Lieutenant, Mavrin Fane, and then 4 Venerated Loxodon to make these vampires a little bit bigger, ready to rumble.
Jeez.
Ready to come for that blood. And then, obviously, 4 Legions Landing. Oh, also, shout out to Marcial Carvalho on his top 8. You know how many copies of Legions Landing he's playing?
4.
Damn right.
Clean.
And, how many times did we see lists with 3 and we would just...
Dude.
It just drove us nuts. Because did you watch some of his games on coverage?
Yeah.
When he was playing in day 2?
Mm-hmm.
How good did Legions Landing look?
Oh, it's absurd all the time.
Right. Like against Control, I was watching a game where he attacked against Esper Control, flipped it, and it let him play in a Ajani on turn 3.
Mm-hmm.
And it was over.
Yeah.
And it was literally because he flipped the Legion's Landing and was able to play an Ajani ahead of curve against Esper, who otherwise would have had enough time to win the game. And whenever I see lists that, if you're in a deck interested in playing Legion's Landing, I'm really struggling to see a world in which you think it's okay to play less than 4 copies. We've been saying this forever. So it's nice to see a lot of these really well-performing decks finally realizing that it's almost a lot of the reason to play the deck.
Yeah, I think wasn't there a game against LSV in the top 8 where it was like super tight, but really the only reason Carvalho won was because he was able to just make a token.
So that's the one match
multiple times.
That's the one match I missed. So
was it?
I'm gonna have to just.
There was a game where he flipped a landing and then LSV kind of stabilized, but was still on the back foot because he was pretty low, and then Carvalho was just had a continuous creature, right? And was
Yeah.
able to
Gain enough.
finally get in that last 2 points of damage in. I think he was missing.
Legion's Landing, an incredible card. But yeah, this Joe So Mardu aggro vampires. It's tribal vampires. It's got, and if you want to tell me it's not, it's got 3 Champion of Dusk in the sideboard. The fact that Cam is sick and not here for this is just outrage, because he played around actually quite a bit over the last year with white-black vampires, and had mentioned on the very first deck dump for Guilds of Ravnica that he thought that vampires actually had legs as a deck. He thought it was a reasonable tribe. He thought it was the only reasonable tribe. He thought it had power to it, and he thought there was something there. And he said, because of cards like Champion of Dusk that let you play this early game and then refuel, that it actually had a lot more power than you expected. Obviously, this is a really, I think, refined build, and I think it's pretty strong.
Yeah, 4 Legion's Landing too.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and then, Judith. And yeah, this deck's pretty interesting. I think it's probably pretty good. Really taking advantage of unclaimed territory. A card that's, in my opinion, and a few others, just a wildly underplayed, underexplored.
Yeah, I mean, the only place we've really seen it is that green-red aggro deck that top-8'd Memphis a couple weekends ago here. And is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Was it played in the Merfolk
and
deck?
of course, one other tribe. The other god tribe.
The folk.
The folk, baby. Just out here, dude. You think that the folk are dead in every format? Wrong. Standard All-Star, Arena Precon, Raph Levy, the best player in the universe, going 8-2 at the Pro Tour with Arena Precon Merfolk.
You love to see it.
And everyone else who played it with him, 0 wins in Constructed. The overall record of the deck in Constructed, 8-9. He went 8-2. No one else got a win. They all just dropped. No one, they all just lost on day one and didn't do anything.
Oh,
but
so
somehow he went 8-2 with an Arena Precon.
Man,
to me, it's the defining feature of this entire Mythic Championship. I'm sure I've called it a Pro Tour a bunch so far, but it's the defining moment for me for a lot of reasons. One, because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's actually just so ludicrous.
Oh, yeah.
So a friend of mine who is, before Arena, didn't know anything about Magic, but plays all the time. And I think on ladder, he's like platinum or something, or diamond. He's pretty high up, and he literally just plays the Merfolk Precon. He added cards, just basically the exact list that Ref Levy's playing is what he plays. And he was losing his mind when I sent him a link, oh yeah, this guy went 8-2 at the Mythic Championship. He's like, I knew it, that deck's nuts. But he doesn't know anything. It's so funny. It is great.
Knew it all along.
Yeah, he's like, I knew that deck was great. I'm a genius. So yeah. So funny. Yeah. So the reason it's so great to me is, one, it's funny. It's a meme, it's an Arena Precon. But it says a lot about the health of the format to me.
Yeah.
That Wizards is giving a Precon that, with some additions, you spend a few wild cards and build up your tribal Merfolk deck, you can compete. You can compete in ladder. You can play, and the sort of free-to-play decks are, quote-unquote viable. At least at lower ranks, are going to be good. And the fact that at a Mythic Championship or PT, this deck went 8-2 is insane. It just goes to show the sort of diversity of the standard metagame right now, and sort of how healthy standard is. And sort of same with this Joso Mardu, tribal vampires went 7-3. Right? That's I love the 1 of Unbreakable Formation. Man, that card is nuts though. Have you cast that card?
Oh yeah, it's so good.
Dude, it's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
When I play mono white and I'm playing that card, oh, does it feel good. Yeah, that card's phenomenal.
So let's talk a little bit about this top 8. So we had 3 mono blue decks: Esper Control, Izzet Phoenix, Gruul Aggro, and Azorius Aggro, right?
Yep.
That's it. So the one Simic Nexus deck. So do you like this strategy right now? Because I know you talked a bit about it last week, in that you're a little unsure of it because, what if they just kill your 2 Hydrate Crisis? Then what do you do? Yeah,
so the strategy you're referring to specifically is the win condition being just 2 Hydrate Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the deck is, Growth Spiral, Nexus, Root Snare, Sinister Sabotage, Search, Wilderness Reclamation, 3 Blink of an Eye. This is basically exactly the list we saw at
Memphis.
Yeah, weeks leading up to this. And so, and I had said I was a little wary of that. But I suppose the way the deck plays out and sets up its win, it can protect it. And it's going to set up a position where it doesn't matter. The only concern is that if you do draw both and somehow, somebody just double thought Erasures you, you lose on the spot. And that's probably a pretty low percentage chance. I was probably overly hesitant about that strategy because of that. But yeah, I mean, the deck is a lot faster than just buying time. And you're like, I think the important distinction, and I maybe just kind of last week when I was talking about this, I sort of just didn't think as clearly about it, maybe because I play so much just Sultai midrange with Krasis, that this isn't a deck playing Krasis to grind. You know what I mean? You're not playing it to grind out wins with Krasis. It's just a win condition that draws you more cards to continue the Nexus loop once you have Wilderness Reclamation on the board. And you need to treat it as such. It's not a card you run out on defense. It's not, you know what I mean? So you just have to go into playing it with the sort of correct mentality.
Yeah.
And so I think that's sort of maybe what you need to do. I do and still like the sideboard plan.
Yeah. I love the creature sideboard plan. I think it's really good. And like this deck actually performed very well this past weekend.
Yeah.
It had a really high conversion rate, almost 72%. There was a ton of copies of Nexus decks and the top performing.
Yeah, and theoretically, its conversion rate could have been brought down by the Gates version, which definitely did worse, because Nexus of Gates is not as good. And so, like, it's just not, because it's slower, it's awkward, there's too many aggro decks. And so, maybe the Simic Nexus build, its numbers and conversion rate and performance were even brought down because Wizards didn't, in its metagame breakdown, give us a breakdown between the 3 different builds of Nexus.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we don't know, but we can probably safely assume that the Gates version we know that actually, that the Gates version did perform worse. And so its conversion rate is even better than what is listed on the WotC website, if we're just looking at Simic Nexus, because we know the Gates version performed worse. So yeah, no, Simic Nexus, a deck that you need to be prepared for. Although of note, I messaged the DWC group chat on the weekend where I got unmoored ego. I was playing Bant Nexus, not Simic Nexus, and exactly what I had mentioned last week about concern over your win condition came up. I got unmoored egoed in 3 or 4 different matches playing Bant, and I won all of those games that I got unmoored egoed.
Well, yeah, multiple win conditions.
Right, because it just didn't matter. They took my Nexus, but I had boarded up to 4 Krasis. I have 4 Teferi and 4 Depose to play. Yeah. So while they're wasting cards with Unmoored Ego and wasting time, I can just set up, and I board in all counter spells because the Unmoored Ego decks are Esper, so I just have all these negates, and I just pressure their life total with Krasis and counter backup. You just play a Krasis and leave up negates because you have so much mana, and Wilderness Reclamation and Teferis are so threatening that you can, and Depose Deploy actually is still pretty good against control. That you'll flip your search and have search more often as you play 3. So yeah, you can win through it, but I don't know that. Well, the Simic version isn't winning because they'll just, if they know what they're doing, they're going to unmoored ego your Krasis and you just lose. Unless you bring in all the creatures. So yeah, if you're an Esper player, you got to be really careful about that because I assume they're still going to bring in Biogenic Ooze and Nezahal and all these other things, but you can beat that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but I think Simic Nexus is very good.
Yeah. So aside from, we'll touch on Mono Blue last, but what deck is it? So is it Phoenix? This deck doing well kind of, I think, shocked a lot of people.
Just the week 1. This is just week 1 Guilds of Ravnica from last season. Yeah. No, I'm trying to think. There's no cards here that are.
There's a Blood Crypt in the main deck.
Oh, my bad. It's just so you can get the Discovery Dispersal value.
Yeah.
But other than that, this is Other than Blood Crypt.
The one Blood Crypt.
The one Blood Crypt. This is basically week one. Is it Phoenix?
Yep.
And Is it Phoenix performed incredibly well this weekend.
Yeah, 100% conversion rate between the 7 players who played it. I think LSV went 7-3 in standard. And it's kind of crazy that this deck just kind of popped up and did so well. But actually, I'm not really surprised when you think about it, because back last format playing Golgari,
it has an excellent matchup.
You had a hard time with this matchup simply because of Arclight Phoenix. And then once all the decks switched to Drakes, the matchup got a lot better for Golgari, I found.
And Drakes had a horrible conversion rate at this Pro Tour.
Yeah, absolutely. But now, bringing back Arclight Phoenix, and you have all these Sultai decks floating around.
But what is one thing you've noted all the Sultai decks have done? They've cut on
Vraska's Dents.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, your cast downs and Chupacabras are eating Drake's decks, sure. But Phoenix decks, that Phoenix is a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this deck not having a good look against Esper Control. And I imagine in the Swiss, that probably didn't help many of the Phoenix players. And obviously in the top 8, if you watch that match, he got demolished by Esper Control. It was a slaughter.
Yeah.
He also, surprisingly, in my opinion, he also made a really bad misplay.
Which was that?
So there was a point where Akawa had stolen a Goblin Electromancer, and he attacked with it. And LSV double blocked with his Murmuring Mystic and the 1/1 token from a Murmuring Mystic. And Akawa had the second Eldest Reborn. He'd played the first one, which is how he had the Goblin Electromancer.
Mm-hmm.
And LSV blocked at like 18 life, lost his 1/1 bird, and then the guy
Mystic.
and then he slammed the second Eldest Reborn, clearing the board and getting rid of Murmuring Mystic, which is a card that if it sticks around versus control, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
And he didn't have another way to kill it. But sorry. I take it back. It's not a misplay because he already cast 1, and you shouldn't play around the second there probably, because it's more likely that the Esper Control deck has a Mortifier of Vraska's Contempt for your Murmuring Mystic than they do the second Eldest Reborn. And also, if the second Eldest Reborn hits your Murmuring Mystic, it's better than it hitting the Niv Mizzets that you're bringing in, which he did draw the next turn, but it was too late.
Mm-hmm.
So I shouldn't say it was a misplay. It was just unlucky, actually. But it's just unlucky because that matchup's miserable, right? Because Esper Control ain't shaving on Vraska's Contempts, right? And even LSV said, right, they were talking about the matchup that he thinks it's miserable for him. He even said, I think in the interview, right, if you were watching that, he thinks it's one of the worst top 8 pairings he's had, apart from 2 others that he mentioned specifically. He said this is one of the most lopsided pairings in a top 8 I've had in years.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see a lot of Is It Phoenix, then you know what to play.
Yeah. But, Mono Blue has to be a good matchup. Sultai, probably a fine matchup.
He said he was beating up on Mono Blue all weekend.
Yeah, which I'm absolutely not surprised. Drake was already preying on Mono Blue, and this is practically the same. It's the exact same deck.
Autumn, they said that they hoped they didn't. They would way rather play against
Esper and
LSV.
Yeah. Yeah. So that deck doing well was definitely a good pick for the weekend when you look at the top decks, which is interesting. So Majlaton. Mono red.
Yeah, mono red with Experimental Frenzy and Light Up the Stage, splashing for 4 Cindervines in the sideboard and 3 Collision Colossus, which is an excellent choice. And also in the sideboard, on top of that, you have 4 Lava Coil. This is a deck ready to beat Mono Blue.
Yeah. Yeah, he said himself that he wouldn't have top 8'd this event without the green splash for the sideboard cards. And
because he's not beating. Well, you can still beat Nexus, but this locks it up.
Yeah, having access to a card like Cindervines really pushes things in your favor.
Yep, and then also just that Collision Colossus and 4 Lava Coils on the board. You have 7 cards to bring in versus Mono Blue that are all great.
Mm-hmm.
That are all clean, good answers. And then post-board against control, you still have lots of game. I think this is a really good red deck. I think this is a lot of it's a red deck that has a lot of sideboard options, which is not the sort of usual.
Yeah, it's funny to think though. I think like control is probably his worst matchup.
Yeah, I agree. But if you can stick, that's why we have post-board. You have Treasure Map.
Yeah.
You have another Dire Fleet. You have Dire Fleet Daredevil, and you have the 4 Experimental Frenzies main. So, you can still steal games for sure. But it's tough.
Frenzy's just not a clean way to win these games anymore, though, with Esper Control.
Right.
Mortify.
I definitely think I think that Esper Control is what has kept Mono Red from being a massive threat in the format. Absorb, Mortify, Vraska's Contempt. All these cards are just 2-for-1s. Just against Mono Red, they're just legit. They're just playing a bunch of 2-for-1s against you. But I will say the Green Splash, awesome that you can bring in Collision Colossus against Control for Lyra instead of Fight with Fire.
Yeah.
Because you don't need 10 mana, and the Collision Colossus can just get them on the front side.
Yeah, it's so good.
Isn't that crazy when you think about it?
Good,
That's because normally when you're playing red and they Lyra, you're like, ugh, like I got to bring in this stupid Fight with Fire and it's not great. You know what I mean? It's just not a feel-good card, but Collision Colossus is
fantastic.
Right? Like it's so good, man. This is one of the best sideboard inclusions in my opinion because it comes in against mono blue. It's actually insane versus control because it just can kill them. Because it's +4 damage.
Yeah.
And it does 6 damage to flyers. So it's sort of just...
It's actually just nuts.
Right. Like when I saw it, I was like, wait, this is insane versus control. Because all the control opponents are bringing in Lyra. It's in every single sideboard.
Yep.
And they are.
Yeah.
And you just don't have to worry about it. And then if you draw it... Because other times, like how many times have you played Fight with Fire and you're like, ugh, because you draw it early and it just rots. Mm-hmm. Well, here we can kill them with it. So this is just such a step up from Fight with Fire. So if you're kind of curious about, is Collision Colossus good? Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. Because mono red would not have this sort of sideboard versatility that Gruul Aggro does. And I think that is a huge upgrade for this deck. Just the fact that its entire sideboard is just green, right? Is basically why the deck is the way it is. This is sideboard cards. It says so much about just standard, but also, how important sideboarding is in standard. But it's cool. It's a cool sideboard. This is one of the more inventive mono red decks, I think.
Yeah. Like I don't like mono red right now, and I haven't really ever during this format. Yeah. So I wouldn't play it personally, but if you were looking to play mono red, this is probably where you want to be.
I think this deck's great, but I still, if you're a member of our Discord, noted Canadian icon, Magic legend, Philip J. Samuel will be happy, I'm sure, to give his thoughts on this deck and what he might change. But I'm sure he'll want to try it out first. I don't know if he has already, but he's a sort of resident. This is one of the benefits of being in the Discord is a resident sort of one tricks. A couple of one tricks in the chat that are.
Phil Sams does love his mountains.
Oh, he was miserable that Mono Blue did so well.
Yeah,
he hates islands.
He absolutely hates
he was
those islands.
So miserable all weekend. I just kept pinging him on chats and trolling him about it. I was like, look at this blue dominance everywhere. He was just so, dude, he was crushed inside. But I mean, he did have a pretty accurate assessment though. He said, well, Mono Blue probably did so well because what are the two best decks or most played decks, right?
Yeah, Sultai and Nexus.
And Nexus, and
Can
he said as soon as I saw the percentage of the metagame, I knew those dirty islands were in for a good weekend.
You love to see it.
Yeah.
But so beyond that, we had Carvalho on the, Azorius aggro deck, which we've kind of seen floating around top 8s this entire format.
Yeah, deck's really good. One of the differences, I think he had Baffling End's main, which I think was an awesome decision versus Mono Blue, and it's still good versus Sultai. Like he sort of made a concession that it would be worse against control, but, I don't think he's necessarily as worried game 1 anyway. Mm-hmm. And post-board, the sort of a Johnny Adversary of Tyrants looked incredible versus control, and then obviously you have access to Negates and Spell Pierce.
Yeah.
And 2 Disdainful Stroke. I also really like the 1 island in his sideboard. I really do, because I've been playing this deck a bit, and I wasn't.
Man, you're adding 4 drops to your deck, and you have 20 lands. It's not always going to end well for you.
And it's also just you only have eight blue sources before, and if you're bringing in Spell Pierce, Disdainful Stroke, and Negate, you want to be able to cast them early if you can, especially if it's a Spell Pierce. If you're just on negates. So I think his deck list is really good.
Yeah, this guy, I feel like he's in the top 8 of every.
Dude, he's a
big
monster.
Like actually, I feel like he's just always in them.
Yeah.
Like, did he top 8 the last Pro Tour?
I think so. Or the one before that. I can't remember which one. But yeah, he's just the guy's on a tear.
Guy's a machine.
It's because also his limited records are always nuts, right?
Yeah, he's absurd and limited.
I think he's the best limited player alive right now, right? And has been for like a couple years.
Yeah.
Despite the sort of shady history that followed him. But I think he's reformed.
Didn't when was it that there was the limited where you could qualify for the World Championship by having the best limited record?
Limited Master, yeah.
The Limited Master. Did he win that?
Yep.
Yeah. Guy's nuts.
And then he was in the finals of the World Championship, right? Versus BBD.
Yeah.
That was that year, yeah. No, yeah, he's he's nuts.
Yeah. So then we had the Esper Control deck, which lost in the finals.
Yeah, Kawa. So yeah, this deck is really good. I think the one change I would make, and the one swap he has, is an Eldest Reborn main instead of a Precognitive Perception, right? I think this is the change. I wish I could still find a way to fit a Precognitive Perception in this deck. I feel like he lost the finals in the games he lost because he not flooded per se, but as a control deck, he never had the raw card advantage to keep up when he boarded into the transformational sideboard. Of note, these transformational sideboards are very popular. And I think that if you watch his game 4 that he loses and the game 2 that he loses, or game 1 maybe, he is 9 or 10 lands in play and just doesn't have enough stuff to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that also happens in game 5 because he's just stuck with creatures.
Yeah.
And he couldn't do anything end step to bait out spells and then do stuff on his main phase. So he sort of sacrificed the power of control, which is card advantage, and to just sort of have late game power. And he lost in the late games post board. And so I wondered to what extent, the games he won, he had Search for Escanta, right?
Yeah.
And I wondered, and he cast Chemist's Insights, multiples in the games he won. The games he lost, he didn't cast those things and didn't flip a search. So I think sort of having a precognitive, one other thing, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's the one trade I would make for this deck, is that I think you need to keep up with that game plan of raw card advantage. But it's hard. You know what I mean? It's definitely hard to balance all of those things when you're trying to bring in Lyra, Thief of Sanity, yada yada, Moment of Cravings, which he brought in, and you definitely bring in Lyra versus Mono Blue because if it resolves.
Yeah, it's that finals was so interesting because he basically just got outmaneuvered in the sideboard plans, where Autumn just left it in Essence Captures, and was totally able to just knock him off. Yeah, because he just couldn't do anything. Like I think both games 4 and 5, just all of his creatures got countered over there. Or was it game 5 where he cast the creature and then Autumn was like, yeah, you have it. And then he just died.
Yep. It was 4, I think. Yeah. And so, no, that was 5. It was 5 when they won. So, I wonder, is that it's such a tough decision. I think maybe he should have boarded them out for the last game and gone back to game 1 configuration.
Yeah, because, there's something to be said where when your opponent doesn't know what kind of sideboard plan you're bringing in, but in the finals of a Mythic Championship in the top 8 entirely, we have deck lists.
Right.
So Autumn was able to, I think they spoke about this briefly in their winners interview, saying that it was the one big decision they had to make was, I'm not sure if I should be playing around these creatures coming in. I don't know what he's going to do.
And Autumn ultimately made the decision that I can't risk it. I have to leave in the Essence Captures because I will lose to Lyra.
Yeah.
Or a Thief hitting me multiple times. And so I think Ikawa in game 5 should have recognized this inevitability, that when you think about how the meta plays out in this minor sort of decision-making moment, that Autumn has to leave in essence captures because they can't take the risk, right? Whereas you can take the risk of not having Lyra and them having a dead card. And that is one of the sort of things that has made Control such a powerful force for so many years, in that it creates virtual card advantage by in game ones versus many decks by leaving their removal dead draws and putting people on mulligans. This is if you watched the LSV game versus Ikawa. LSV just game one had double lava coil in it. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
You just, you're just dead. You just lose. You just lose on spot.
Well, yeah, in that matchup, you're just hoping you draw the right half of your deck, and if you don't, like,
it's over.
You're dead in the water.
So I think that maybe in game 5, Ikawa could have recognized that, well, they have to leave in essence capture because they can't take the risk, and maybe changed. But yeah, anyway, I think the reasons it lost were just sort of card advantage. I know it sounds weird, but if you rewatch the games, I think it really comes down to creatures versus card advantage, and the creature strategy is really powerful if Autumn didn't navigate it correctly, which they did.
Oh yeah, the patience on the Curious Obsession.
Yeah. Autumn played so well to navigate that. It was funny though, early games 1 and 2, I think they were both a little nervous. There were a few sort of punts and mistakes that on both sides. But then when it really came down to the important games, I think both sides actually played very well. It was
a very good final.
It was an awesome final.
Which was great to see with how the final of Pro Tour Gilder Ravnica went with mulligans.
Just LSV mulligans to oblivion.
Yeah.
LSV just running back another top 8 though, okay?
Back to back.
Yeah.
Man.
But and the Esper list I think is great though, overall. I think it's excellent. The triple hostage taker sideboard, incredible. I think you still bring those in versus mono blue no matter what.
Yeah.
But maybe not Lyra, is all I'm saying, and maybe not Thief. He brought in all of them, but maybe not all of them. Also, of note, holy Christ, we haven't talked about this yet. How busted did Kaya look versus Mono Blue?
It's so good.
Dude.
It's so good.
When he played it, he top decked it on turn 3 and played it. I was like, oh my God, this game's over. You can hit their Curious Obsessions in case they have dive down.
It just kills everything, man. It does everything.
It was nuts. It gained life. I never thought, man, that we would see a standard, Mythic Championship, a high level tournament where a turn 3 top decked Kaya would be so thrilling. It's just wild. And all weekend though, when it was on coverage, it looked insane, right?
Yeah.
Versus Mono Blue, it's just nuts. It's the sickest tech of the entire weekend. That and that and the Collision Colossus for Control for Lyra's out of the red deck. Those I think are the 2 sickest sideboard tech. They're nuts, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So pretty sweet Esper list. I really love Cry the Carnarium main. I think that's cutting down Akaya's Wrath because you can 1-for-1 Sultai Control and sort of fight a game. You don't need a Wrath against them. In fact, you don't always need a Wrath, right?
1 is usually good enough.
Right, for Kaya's Wrath. But Cry the Carnarium is excellent versus, White Weenie, Mono, you know what I mean? So I really like this configuration of 3 Kaya's Wrath to Cry the Carnarium. I love the 1-of Moment of Craving main and 1 on the board. I think that, Adantos Vanguard is annoying enough to justify it. And then I think you have the 3 Mortify, nobody's leaving home without. And then, 3 Absorb instead of 4. The trade-off here is a negate main, which I like, and I've always liked. In fact, I have yet to, since last season, even in Jeskai, even in anything, I have always played a negate or 2, usually 2 in my control list, no matter what, in my Teferi decks. And it just comes down to that. I am just trying to cheese people, right, on turn 5. And I think that combo, quote unquote, of play my Teferi on 5, untap my lands, your go, and then they untap and try Vrask's Contempt it, and you negate it, and you win on the spot, right?
Yeah.
I think that is something that also he recognized here as a very powerful tool. And then also we have the 1-of Karn Scion of Urza as a sort of...
Another card advantage engine and a win condition.
Yeah. So it's great. I think this Esper control is phenomenal. So apart from, I think I would like to find 1 card to put in a precognitive perception. But other than that, so I don't know what that 1 card is, but if you were looking to play this, I really am a big advocate of really playing to the deck's strengths, which are card advantage and grinding people out. So that's the one sort of change I would make. Seem reasonable?
Yeah, seems reasonable to me. And then what everyone wants to hear about, Mono Blue. Autumn Burchett taking it down. I really like this deck list. 4 dive downs. That's probably the only thing I'm not really a fan of. I like 3. I think 3 is a really good number. Reed Duke was on 3. Reed Duke's deck list pretty close to what I'd be playing. He went up to 20 islands. I like 19.
Yeah, I've played 20, and I found that post board I always caught one anyway.
Yeah.
Although of note, Autumn Burchett adds an island post board.
Yeah.
For the mirror. So playing 19 main and then adds an island post board for the mirror because they identified that the mana making sure that you can cast all your spells in the mirror because it's a tempo mirror.
Yeah, super important. And you're bringing in
3 entrancing melodies.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
Just making your land drops and being able to cast your spells is the big swing in the mirror. And I really like that. Yeah. So, and I think going down to the 1 Mystic Cloak Herald, I'm fine with. People cutting chart, of course, right? We're down to 1 copy main in these lists. Yeah. I think that's good.
Yeah, it seemed like everyone kind of adopted the 1 entrancing melody main deck.
Yeah.
Which...
It's so good.
Aside from Reed, but Reed is Reed. Everyone bumped up on essence captures, though. Did you notice that?
Yeah, a lot of essence. I mean, I was always a fan of it from day one. I thought it was a really, really powerful option. I think in a lot of matchups it swings in your favor. It makes the mirror really good.
Yeah, so I like it going in this weekend, coming out of Memphis with a Rekindling Phoenix deck. And people obviously high on Rekindling Phoenix because it's super good versus Mono Blue.
Yeah.
And most Mono Blue decks had been playing, that I'd been seeing anyway, were around like 1 essence capture, maybe 2. Burchett had 3 in the 75. Reed Duke had 4 in his 75. I think it was just a good decision to play more copies of that card, 2 in the main deck going in this weekend. But yeah, aside from that, everything's pretty stock.
Yeah, well, you would expect. I mean, give or take a few changes, but I don't think the singular minor card choices here are as sort of influential as the card choices in something like Esper, where I'm nitpicking over a single card, and I'm very like, I think this could swing a lot of games because Esper sees more cards and then can take advantage of that and snowball that card advantage. The sort of card selection along Mono Blue isn't the same, so these sort of minor changes aren't a big deal, but I agree, and I think that Essence Capture is something that people should be sort of packing in their lists. I think it's pretty strong. I also think it's sort of, in the mirror, it's a few things. It's making sure you can cast your spells, and then what do we want? More stats.
More stats.
When do we want it? More stats. So just putting counters on your, having a 2/2 flyer versus their 1/1 flyer is it's the mirror breaker.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The mirror is so interesting because the card, like, basically Merfolk Trickster becomes like weirdly the best, most important card in the matchup.
It's phenomenal. You do not throw it away for any reason other than ambushing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you just play it out for tempo value, you lose.
Mm-hmm.
You'll lose.
It's actually just the most important card in the entire matchup because, you can shut your opponent off Curious Obsessions. You can get a Tempest Gen out of the air to block it. And I mean, Tempest Gen, like, the games play out so interesting. Like, I've played a lot of Mono Blue online, and like, there's so much to be said to, what turns are you holding up Essence Capture, like play versus draw. Like, if you have an opportunity to sneak a Tempest Gen in, you just like take it. And then you almost, it's funny, like, you just never attack your 1/1 flyer into 2 open mana ever in the early turns. You just can't because it's dead.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the few tips and tricks for playing. Also, big, huge, massive shout-outs. Big, huge, massive shout-outs. Do you see the card in the sideboard?
Are you talking about the transmogrifying one?
Hell yeah.
Reed Duke?
Hell yeah, dude.
A god amongst men.
Noted listener of the DWC podcast, Reed Duke. Nobody played this card in sideboards, right? Just so we're clear when we were talking about it.
He was I think one of the only lists I saw it in. Yeah.
We talked, man, LP played it at the Invitational back in December, man. We were on Transmogrifying Wand before Alliance was even out. We were like, this card is insane in the mirror. Because it's basically Merfolk Trickster on a stick, right? It's nuts.
Yeah, and I mean, one of your only ways to deal with a Niv Mizzet.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we have talked at length about Transmogrifying Wand as a sideboard tech for Mono Blue. And if you don't think Reed played against Mono Blue throughout the Swiss, you're out of your mind. And I bet that's why it's there, but also for Phoenixes and like for Niv Mizzet decks. I mean, yeah. So big shout outs to Reed Duke for taking our advice. Clearly a listener.
Must be a long time.
But I'm just saying it's a vilifying experience to sort of, you know what I mean? See Reed Duke adopt a sideboard tech that sort of no one seems to have adopted, and we've been sort of really high on for quite some time. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, love to see it.
Yeah, love to see it. But all in all, actually a really sweet Mythic Championship. We didn't really talk much about Limited this episode because we did a big Limited episode last time, but even the Limited games were great. This Limited format rules.
Yeah, man.
I think actually if you sort of listened to Cam's breakdown, I think that it would have really sort of played out actually in a lot of the games about what mattered in matchups for Limited.
It was very interesting to watch Sigrist draft that blue-white deck. He was a feature drafter on the first pod because we kind of talked about how Azorius was bad, but they took a different kind of approach with it.
Yeah.
And it actually turned out playing out very well.
Yeah, no, I think that's something we missed and sort of a really interesting approach. But we can talk about, we'll sort of revisit these things. I think that was the plan for eventually, but down the road. But
yeah.
Oh, we didn't get a chance to we broke tradition here on the week that was, dude. The Tower Open, you played.
Oh yeah. We had
Cam was out of town. He was in Alberta for a funeral, and I was busy with other commitments, but
so the wonderful sponsors of this podcast, the Wizard Tower, wizardtower.com, hosted their Ravnica Allegiance 2K Open Championship this past weekend. And your boy played in it. Undefeated in Modern 4-0 with Tron. Absolutely decimated the field.
As Tron does. Wait, the Assassin's Trophies didn't get you?
No. Dude,
unbelievable.
Round 1, I got paired against Teamer Blood Moon.
Amazing.
Played turn 2 Blood Moon against me, both games 1 and 2, and I smashed him.
Turn 2 Blood Moon?
Yeah, man. I played turn 1 Noble Hierarch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Then I played 2 Is It Phoenix decks in a row. Crushed them.
Huh.
Game 3 of both matches, I got to Surgical Extraction, the Phoenixes they put in the yard on turn 1, and then the match was just over from that point.
Just butter.
Yeah. It was, yeah. And then I played against Burn in the final round.
In the top 8?
No, in the final round of Modern.
Oh, okay.
Before draft against the Ottawa Burn God himself.
Oh, Benoit. Noted pro or Mythic Championship competitor, Benoit.
We spoke about him last week on the show. I played against him in round 4. He was playing Burn, and let me tell you, I never beat this dude in Modern.
I'd never beat that dude at anything.
And I 2-0'd him, and it was the best feeling in the world. Game 1, I'm on the play. I mull to 5, keep natural Tron plus an extra power plant and an O-Stone. Draw Worm Coil, easy win.
Classic scumbag Tron.
And then game 2, I can't even remember what happened, but when Burn doesn't play a turn 1 Goblin Guide, things are looking pretty good.
Yeah. And you can win the natural Tron Worm Coil.
Yeah. The turns they play a turn 1 Goblin Guide into a turn 2 Goblin Guide, you lose.
You play 4 Worm Coil this weekend?
Absolutely.
Probably with none.
Yeah, it was all the time. And then I went 1-1-1 in draft. Intentionally drew in the last round.
Yeah.
Into 3rd seed.
Nice. Wow.
Got paired against Burn in the top 8.
You're on the play though.
Yeah. Lost game 1, didn't matter. But I beat it in the quarters, and then we split top 4, where I got paired against Benoit, the Burn God again. And he flipped things around on me.
Yeah, he came back for you.
I can't ever hope to beat that guy twice in one turn. It doesn't happen.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I never want to play against them.
But yeah, it was a fun tournament. Got to play some Tron again.
Yeah.
And now I don't have to play Modern for a very long time, which is kind of good.
But yeah, if you want to check out the Tower website, it's wizardtower.com. They got free shipping in Canada for single orders.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to pick up some sweet new cards that you saw perform well at the Mythic Championship this past weekend.
Get your transmogrifying ones.
All right. And thank you all for joining the club this week. Make sure, as always, you check out our sponsor, wizardtower.com. If you want to get in contact with the podcast, you can find us on Twitter at DWC Podcast 1 or on Facebook, the Disorganized Wizard Club Podcast. If you want to support the show, you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/DWC Podcast. All patrons get access to the DWC Discord. And we have a sweet little bonuses like our pre-show chats, etc.
Yeah, we sent out tokens. Listeners got their tokens. So if you sign up for certain levels, you get custom tokens. And they're pretty sweet. Yeah. I'm pretty proud of those tokens.
Yeah. And however you listen to the show, whether it's on Podbean, iTunes, any podcast app, leave us a review, rate the show, share it with your friends. Everything helps the thing grow and bring it to new listeners. And we'll catch you all next week.
Take care.